I'm author Mark Muncy,
And I'm author Erika Lance.
and this is Eerie Travels. Greetings, travelers. We're back. Oh my goodness.
We're back, and I believe this entire episode is supposed to be about reasons we made up to eat chocolate a lot in February. Isn't that what we're talking about?
And to get presents and to have nice dinners.
And make ourselves feel bad when we don't have a significant other. Many other torturous things that go along with this particular episode.
Again, I don't think I don't know if we need to do as many trigger warnings on this one as we have in some of the recent ones. But again, we're going to be talking about Valentine's Day.
Well, that might just be a trigger warning in and of itself.
I know. I mean, I'm not going to go with the obvious. I'm not going to talk about how St. Valentine's was, ripped apart or anything like that, because that represents the chocolate that you're eating. No.
I definitely think when we go back to when St. Valentine existed, and the entire reason for this holiday was to have some sort of event that occurred right after New Year's to put on the holiday store display section.
That's the more modern. The modern reason was they realized we sold out of Christmas cards and we don't have anything till Mother's Day, so we got to invent a holiday. So and so they did, and it was, but it does tie into St. Valentine, which again, not exactly a holiday about romance. Even that, oh my gosh, it goes back again, because as we discussed, we talked about in bulk. This is when we should talk about Lupercalia, because that
sounds like something you need a cream for. Is that something that creates like a fungal itch?
All right. Well, the Lupercal was in Rome, and it was the legendary site where Romulus and Remus were suckled by the great wolf. And so to celebrate the founding of Rome, they would sacrifice a goat or warning Callie, a dog. And they would, and then because they normally use pigs and sheep and bulls for their sacrifices, so that's what made this one kind of weird. They did not do that with that one. And then they would smear the blood from the knife on a couple young boys, and then it's just weird. They would basically whip them and wipe them with wool that was dipped in milk to clean them afterwards. That's all we know.
This goes back to like Rome celebrating things and creating vomitoriums. So that they could celebrate and puke. Like, there's no logic to something like this. Well, and who celebrates suckling on a wolf? Like, why would that be a celebration?
It founded the town. That's the Romulus and Remus. That's why it's Rome. And then now probably after this point, is when you get the fun parts of it. Although then they sacrifice a goat, and then they cut it into thongs and then give it to athletes to run the marathon up to this Lupercal. And some accounts basically more whipping to be fertile. Women volunteer to be whipped by the runners so that they can become fertile. And there's all these famous paintings of Lupercalia and all this. But the main problem is this is such a weird holiday. The word itself is just we're not even sure the Lupercal is the word. It's just, we're not even sure what they were celebrating. Is it Romulus and Remus? Is it this? Ovid said one thing, Livy said another thing. All these guys said different things. It's weird. But why would you make that your candy holiday?
I want my candy holiday back, because The only significance this holiday has to me is it makes some of the chocolate that I really enjoy eating a lot cheaper because they put it in larger quantities and make it very easily accessible at the beginning of the store. And you can make it appear as if you're purchasing, I don't know, the 10 candy hearts I bought yesterday for many people in my life, instead of setting them next to my couch, well, it's a thing. It's a thing.
And we're even thinking it predates Rome. This is probably an older thing that Rome just kept, because that's what they did. We have crap gods and we have crap things, according to Eddie Izzard, the great Eddie Izzard's comedy routine. So thank goodness these guys have some good gods we can use.
Yeah, we had Jeff, the god of biscuits.
Probably the most famous thing, Lupercalia, that's when Caesar was thrice offered the crown, was the festival of Lupercalia. So, and that's when
you and your obscure holidays, because you're making my chocolate, yes, less yummy. So,
well, on the plus side, it was celebrated with lots of wine. So there you go. So
then I'm down. Are we celebrating things with wine and chocolate? I'm in.
All right, there we go.
Let's go. Bring on the vomitorium.
But now Valentine's Day is associated with what? Love, romance,
sexy,
all the beautiful things, right? It's the holiday for your sweetie and all that. And Carrie's busy illustrating some stuff.
I actually am. I know we're going to get a hate mail for this. I'm actually very against some of these commercialized holidays.
Really?
Because, first of all, you should be celebrating a significant person in your life all the time. You should constantly remind them, not once a year, why they're amazing and why they're in your life. Just because you get into a relationship of whatever kind of relationship works for you with one or more people in it, guess what? You don't just get in and then the off switch goes off and they're having to do the romancing of that particular relationship, whatever that means to you and your partner or partners. Right. And I think having it go, one day, you hear these jokes all the time where dinner, all this stuff, take your person or persons out to dinner more than once fucking year at Valentine's Day or anniversaries. Celebrate them all the time. It's so ridiculous. Instead of putting forth positive, sane ways to be a part of somebody's life. And you got me soapboxing, Mark.
That was amazing. I was stunned. That was beautiful. So
bravo. Thank you. Can we talk about something else, or I'm just going to keep getting riled up?
Well, all right. Well, I'm going to talk about two famous lost loves. Let's talk about, because we need to get back with the spooky. Come on, I prefer to call Valentine Valentine, because it's on the road to Halloween now. So it's been a few months since Halloween. We need a second Halloween instead.
I like that. Let's officially declare Valentine's Day second Halloween.
There we go. I agree. I think that's great. We still get the candy without all the pomp and circumstance. It's all good. So
freaking out my sweetie.
Snuggle up.
I love this.
Snuggle up with a ghost story and snuggle up with a horror movie or something. So my ghost story, in the vein of the great tragedies of Romeo and Juliet and all this, I have a ghost story, and it's from my hometown of St. Petersburg, Florida.
I can't wait to hear it, but I need to clarify. You got me on my soapbox. You just said Romeo and Juliet. That's not a great tragedy. What that is two fucking prepubescent teenagers, and 3 days and 6 people die. That's what that is. There's no love in that love story.
That's not a love story. It's not a romance. It is a tragedy. It is right up there with Hamlet, where everybody dies. It's just there is no happy ending there. So if anybody says, "Oh, it's the greatest love story," no, it's terrible. Get real.
Hello, English degree producer here. Romeo and Juliet is evidence that Shakespeare wrote in order to get a paycheck. I rest my case. Thank you very much.
The voice of the producer has spoken.
Yes.
Okay, Mark, we'll let you have your former lover ghost. I'm gonna sit now. Bring me in. Where are we going?
All right. So we are going to one of the icons of Florida, one of those famous pink hotels. It is often known as the Pink Palace. itself, it is near the Gulf of Mexico, is on the Gulf of Mexico, in the shoreline of St. Petersburg. It has an amazing location. It is called the Don Cesar, and is over 100 years been there, or not quite. I think I read somewhere that its 95th anniversary is coming up. So I may be off a little bit on my dates there. Apologies. So in the 1890s, this young guy, another forbidden love. We can talk about a forbidden love, right? It was a forbidden love.
Do not try to link this with Romeo and Juliet. I'm going to end the podcast.
Thomas Rowe attends school in England, and he frequents the opera.
Okay.
And one night he attends the play Maritana, and he meets this beautiful singer. Her name is Lucinda, and they quickly fall in love. And they secretly meet at this fountain in the courtyard. And she calls him Don Cesar, which is one of the characters in Maritana, like the lead character. And so he's just in love. And then as their love keeps blossoming, the problem is she's from Spain and Catholic, and he is not. So her family refuses to let them date, let them court, and they take her back to Spain.
So where did they meet? They met in
London.
So they met at London at an opera.
Yes.
And she called him her Don Cesar,
which is the lead character in that opera that she was singing to. And so that was her code name.
Remember when I quote Mean Girls to people, like, you can't sit with us. Okay, so Don Cesar, but she is Catholic and he is not Catholic. So parents take her back to Spain.
Yep. Said nope, but they promised to write each other. And so Thomas finally graduates school. He's been writing her constantly, and he decides the only way he's going to make a name for himself is move to the United States and just make a name. And he gets to Florida, and he gets to Tampa, and he keeps sending her letters, and some of the letters come back unopened, and he doesn't know what to do about it, but he knows some of them aren't coming back, so he thinks it's still okay. And so he decides to.
This is back when a time when you had to mail letters, and it took weeks for letters to get where they were going.
Because he's sending them to Spain from Tampa, in the 1920s. So he decides to build this hotel for his love, and he's going to make a grand hotel. He talks to one of the great Henrys. We have Henry Plant, Henry Morgan, all these great and terrible Henrys. But he, if in various ways they're great, and in various ways they're terrible. We'll do an episode on the Henrys at some point. There you go, Callie. Another note, episode on the Florida Henrys. And he, since he's going to build this for her and prove to her family that he is worth a damn, right? He's building this magnificent hotel, this giant pink palace, and he calls it the Don Cesar for her. And he even builds a replica of the fountain that they used to meet at. And now while he's building it, he gets a letter from Lucinda, and it's addressed to him, and it's basically saying, why have you never written me? I've never given up hope. And yes, and I'm sadly, I don't feel like I'll be around much longer. Why have you not written me, my love? And she died shortly thereafter. Parents had kept his letters from her. Her parents would not let her have the letters.
What's so beautiful though is that she thought that whole time she was still waiting for him to write her.
Yep.
Oh, now you're making me want to eat more of my chocolates and drink more of my wine.
Yeah. So he built the hotel. It took 2 years, 277 rooms, beautiful castle, and it became a hit. It was like the place to be. F. Scott Fitzgerald, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Al Capone, all the greats are here, to visit this amazing hotel. And even
weirdos, you mean?
Yeah, even Teddy Roosevelt, one of my favorite guys, came there. And then during the Great Depression, while all the other hotels are dying, Don Cesar is doing great, because the New York Yankees come down, and this is where they're going to stay in the spring. So Babe Ruth and the Yankees sign contracts here, and it becomes this, destination place still. And then finally, Roe did marry, although very little is known about his wife. It's like she's just one of these little bit players in history that gets kind of lost between the pages because of the great love story that built all this. But when he died, he had no will. So, and that wife that he had was never around for the hotel or anything. So nobody knew who she was, but it basically went to her. And then she didn't have any money to work it or do anything with it. So it just started dying. And then by 1942, it's falling into disrepair. She sells it to the military, and they convert it to a military hospital. And they use it for the next years for World War II.
Wow.
And then again, by 1969, it's vacant, and they're going to bulldoze it. And eventually enough residents spoke out. Finally, it was purchased in the 1970s, and they started renovating it, and it finally reopens. And now it is this amazing place to go visit. But of course, there's ghosts at this hotel. It's nearly 100 years old. It was used as a military hospital. So there's lots of nurses ghosts seen, and warriors ghosts seen. But most famous ghost there, the man in the Panama hat. And he wears a white suit, and he wears the little white rimmed hat, from the 20s. And he asks everybody, "How do you like my hotel?" And it's Thomas Rowe. And
Wow.
He walks, and some people say he is seen with a young Spanish lady as they walk to the fountain and disappear at night, which would be weird because she never was there. But it's one of those, is this this ghostly spirit here, and the staff talk about the ghosts all the time. They've seen, almost everybody has had some encounter with the man in the Panama hat. Usually he just tips his hat at him, or appears in a mirror, or just walking down the hall. The doctors and ghosts of the ghosts of doctors and ghosts of nurses from World War II are seen quite often. Strange sounds, unusual things, definitely eerie feelings and stuff like that.
So let's go. So it's a very haunted. I've been to the Don Cesar, which, by the way, for if you're listening, it is actually pink. It is still pink.
Yes,
they've kept it pink. It is pink. But so I'm sure there's the theory that he is still there. One, to look over his hotel, but two, probably waiting for her still to come.
Yeah, it's and that's the thing. It's one of those. The whole area around it. I mean, all of Tampa Bay. I've written books about ghosts of Tampa Bay, so there's tons, but the Don is probably the most famous because it is the biggest and most beautiful building there. It is a 4-diamond resort in St. Pete. And I think it is the only 4-diamond resort in St. Pete. It has 2 giant pools, big spa. The restaurant there is off the chart. It's incredible. Again, still rich people come. Most famously, Tom Petty filmed a music video there in the 80s. Because Tom Petty's a big Florida fan.
What music video did he record there?
Oh my God, you got me. I can't remember.
Oh my goodness, Mark's gonna have to Google something.
I'll have to
Oh,
Google it. Or I might
oh
ask
my
our producer.
goodness.
I might ask our amazing producer to Google that, so I don't have to do it on camera.
We'll have to have them to Google it for us, because you can't
Yeah.
throw out a Tom Petty reference and then not tell me what the Tom Petty is. But
It's
wait a
up
minute.
on the roof.
Up on the roof. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, we appreciate that. Thank you. At least somebody here knows what they're talking about.
Yes, yes.
But wait a minute. You had an encounter at the Don Cesar, didn't you?
I think there's some confusion. I had an encounter at the Bellevue Biltmore, which is up in Clearwater, which is another.
Oh, we'll have to talk about that.
We'll have to talk about that another time when we actually talk our ghostly encounters. Yeah, no, I have not had an experience at the Don. I have talked to people who have. They're right near it is the Memorial Suntan Art Center, which was another one of the buildings that the Navy used for a while, and that has ghost encounters a lot. And it's a tiny building, so it's a lot easier to investigate. And I've been there. Spirits of St. Pete, which is a paranormal investigating team run by our good friend Dr. Brandy Stark. That's where she bases her investigations a lot, because that center has given her so much evidence. But she will look out at the Don, to see if the man in the Panama hat is out there, and if he's walking with Lucinda, someone arm in arm with him sometimes. So is that Lucinda, or is it, his wife, that we know so little about? I think that's one of the things that makes it interesting to me, is that it's literally owned the most famous hotel in Florida at the time, and we know nothing about her. We know that she lived nearby, and that she was there for a time, and they were married for a time, but they were estranged. And if you're building a hotel to this lost love, and you name it after your lost love's name for you, I guess any marriage after that's not gonna quite have that spark. And
obviously, if he didn't leave a will, he didn't think too much of it to begin with. So he wasn't like, this is now the love of my life, I must make sure she is okay. Do we know how he died?
He was very young, and it was a heart attack, we believe. It's another one of those
he
fun
died
ones.
Of broken heart.
It could be, but again, he was a dreamer, he was a romantic, and again, these are not harmful ghosts. Even the feelings that the Don Cesar, even the doctors, the nurses, even the ghosts of the patients that are there occasionally. Again, nobody says anything negative about these ghosts. There are other hotels in Tampa Bay, the Vinoy, which is another pink palace on the other side, we'll talk about another time. That one has so many ghosts that the Rays baseball team is not allowed to house visiting teams in it, because it's actually a byline in the baseball rules that they can't house teams there. Again, another fun story for another day. But you can go to that amazing place. I highly recommend. You want a Valentine's place to go? Spend a night at the Don Cesar. Have some fun at at that restaurant. It is amazing. Spend some time at the spa. Presidents have stayed there. Bill Clinton stayed there when it first reopened. This is not.
I just want to point out that we decided to do a Valentine's Day episode, and what you brought us was the story of a broken heart over years, where two very young people. How did you Romeo and Juliet this fucking episode? How did you do that?
Hey,
I don't even understand.
You can go there and look for Thomas and Lucinda standing hand in hand by their fountain.
You make it sound that way, but you're not sure that's who it is.
I know, but it's better than saying, well, maybe it's the chambermaid he was having an affair with. But I will say one of the funnest things I ever did at the Don was a couple friends of mine who were very wealthy got married there. If you YouTube, it was early days of YouTube, they posted this. There's a thing called the Battle Wedding. It takes place at the Don Cesar, and it was basically this couple's getting married. He's a software engineer and she's a lawyer. So they're both, perfect people and rich and badasses. And they do fights with a knight demands her hand. They fight. And then, the guy's like, does anybody else, have any reason these two should not be married? And then Iron Man shows up and demands that she join him for S.H.I.E.L.D. And then Batman shows up and says, no, join me. We can fight in the Batcave. And they have a fight. Then some Russian gangsters show up and they have a fight. And these were all friends of mine who were stunt people and cosplayers that I helped arrange for this couple when I was a GameStop manager, and they used to come into my GameStop all the time. Finally, the Don Cesar manager comes in, played by the great Joel D. Winecoop, who's one of the king of the B movies here in Tampa Bay. And he and his henchmen, which are basically supposed to be the hotel staff, are like, we can't do this, so you have to fight us. And then they have a big battle. And finally, Jimmy Hart, the mouth of the South from the WWE, comes in and makes peace, and they have the rest of their wedding. And that video is incredible, and it's at the Don Cesar. You can see the fountain.
We'll have to get our amazing producer to link it in the show notes so you guys can see. Somehow Mark managed to make this episode, 1, not about true love, 2, brings back Romeo and Juliet, 3, talks about some dinner he had, and 4, then brings it all the way back to some wedding he orchestrated. I don't know how you managed to do that. Seriously, I don't.
It's all wedding. It's all Valentine's, and it's in a pink castle. Come on, this is, and ghosts. It's perfect. It's Valentine. We're bringing it back. We're calling it
okay.
now.
I don't know. You're not bringing that back. But I will say this. I want to give a shout out before we go to break, and I'm going to talk some ghost stories because I went down a rabbit hole. So I'm going to talk some ghosts,
excellent,
which I know you're familiar with when we get back. But first, I want to give a huge shout out to our friends over at Botched, the ADV. It's a Dungeons and Dragons podcast. They are amazing. They gave us a shout out. We're going to link them in the show notes. They are hysterical because I'm not 100% sure they know the rules. I'm 1,000% sure they drink too much when they're playing, but it is ridiculous group of people playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's a great podcast, and you probably will not learn anything other than what not to do while listening to it.
Awesome.
So with that said, we're going to take a break, and we will be right back with Eerie Travels.
Eerie Appalachia. Gear up for a frightful jaunt into the darkest reaches of the ancient Appalachians. Folks deep within the Appalachian hollers lean close to the campfire to share stories of the inexplicable with hushed awe. Monsters rumbling in the hills, strange lights darting through the pitch-black night sky, horrible occurrences almost ineffable in their bizarre tragedy. Tall tales, you might say. Tell that to the Flatwoods monster in Braxton County, West Virginia, or the Goat Man of Louisville. Look into his humanoid eyes and let him know you don't believe. And what of those apparitions in Mammoth Cave's Corpse Rock, or the Satan spawn known as the Jersey Devil? How do you respond when confronted by these mysteries? From the metaphysical energy that swirls near Serpent Mound in Ohio to Point Pleasant's Mothman legacy, Mark Muncy and Carrie Schultz explore the dark history lurking in the shadows of Appalachia. Read by Mark Muncy, author and experts on strange folklore with appearances on shows such as Ancient Aliens, The Curse of Robert the Doll, and many, many more.
Greetings, mortals and others. I'm Dick Terhune, the voice from hell. I work with haunted attractions all over the US, Canada, and Europe to increase audiences and enhance their experience with highly effective commercials, narrations, animatronic character voices, whatever your dark heart desires. Let me help you do more, scare more, profit more. Find out more at Voice from Hell on Facebook and at voicefromhell.com.
Yeah.
So I Claudius, of course.
Such a good show.
I'm sorry I exposed you to that when you were way too young. So
listen, I love it. am surprised that we've done a Valentine's Day episode and we haven't talked about like Caligula and his sister and like the baby that he eats out of her because he thinks he's Zeus and she's Hera and the baby has to be born out of his head.
Yeah, it's gonna be Athena.
It's kind of
we're actually recording right now, like producer.
Oh,
babies out of people's heads. What the hell are you talking about?
Well, bye guys.
No, Callie.
No. What the hell was that? That was like, you can't. Welcome to the Valentine's Day episode where we're going to talk about Mark's wedding that he arranged for other people. And
the saddest part about that was that I couldn't be at it because it was the same week as our GameStop conference when I was a manager there. So I was out in Vegas and missed the whole damn thing, but I arranged it also.
Listen, this is my half of the episode, not your half of the episode. I'm going to talk about, drum roll, we don't have a drum roll. I'm going to talk about the woman in white.
Which one?
Yeah, no, that's exactly the problem. So this all kind of started for me where I was like, the woman in white, the lover, and then her husband dies. And well, it kind of turns out that is absolutely not actually accurate. Well, it is, depending on what culture. But what's really interesting, and you may have already known this, is there is a woman in white or a white woman in pretty much every culture going back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Wow. They all do seem to center around the loss of somebody, whether it's the loss of a loved one, a loss of a child, something like that. Their untimely death, leaving behind somebody. But what is really kind of interesting and creepy about, so going back to what they appear, we're Scooby-Dooing it. They appear as a very pale woman wearing a white dress of some kind. And a lot of people akin it to a wedding dress, but not like a wedding dress that we think of now, just like a really pretty white dress, right? And they normally have very long, straight, dark hair. And they're found wandering the back roads of places to be picked up by travelers. So they look like they're lost.
Beware of hitchhiking ghosts.
Yeah, beware of hitchhiking ghosts. Be careful not to pick up ghosts in your car. That should just be one of the lessons from Mary Travels. But so the stories go all the way back to very specific places. And what's interesting to me, so they're found along the road. They normally ask for help. The problem is, a lot of the stories also talk about how they will jump out in the road and cause travelers to have accidents of some kind, or potentially go off bridges, or go down ravines. So this tragedy normally ends up, this encounter normally ends up with whoever's encountering it, usually, quote unquote, a single male is who will normally encounter these particular spirits.
Lonely man.
But yeah, just so you know, if you're single,
we're Valentine's. We're sticking with that Valentine's
Day. But what I thought was really interesting, and this kind of brings up, it opens up a topic for us to talk about, is this is true in so many cultures. Even in Japan, there's a woman in white.
Yep.
It's there for that, that same kind of reason. Thailand, it's not just like Europe, and it's not just America, Russia, Siberia, right? And they walk around scaring people. Dead women in white is what they call it in Siberia, right? Yeah. And there are specific places that these people are encountered. And what is interesting to me is it's not just one person. It's not just one place. Like you were talking about, the Don Cesar, right?
Right.
And there's ghosts there and things like that. We're going to have so many ghost stories on this podcast. Like, ghosts, you want a ghost? You want a ghost? You want a ghost? We'll give you all the ghosts. But what's interesting is when you talk about something like this, where it's a ghost or a type of apparition that is seen in multiple cultures, in multiple locations, but doing a very similar activity.
Right. And they don't seem to be particularly tied to a building or, like a lot of hauntings where it's in one building, or it's in one thing. It is a lot of roads, stretches of roads and stretches of, and it even goes back to like the moors, and things like that, where they're all in these like boggy places, swampy places. That seems to be a common theme with them as well. Or high out of the way places. Like a lot of them are seen in mountains and are seen walking along the mountains. And that's why they're like, why is that lady up there when, only mountain goats can get up there, people in, protective gear, but there she is. And so it doesn't fit the ghost mode sometimes. So yeah,
it doesn't. And it's interesting because if you go back and go down the rabbit hole of these stories, and they're usually called if you look up Woman in White, you're going to get the movie that was made, right? Yeah. And this all spawned my idea for doing this off of a Supernatural episode. I'll discuss that in a minute. But I'll go back to Supernatural in a minute.
Yeah, we're going to fall back on that and Buffy a lot.
Anytime I can. You know how I feel about Sam and Dean. But what I thought was interesting is researching all of these things. A lot of them had a horrible encounter, had lost their husband, had been killed by their husband, had lost their children. But it's predominant all the way back to like the 1400s and the 1200s and stuff like that, where people, and to this day, there is a road in Pennsylvania that they talk about it, and there's warnings about it, that this woman in white will appear to fall out of the tree onto your car and cause all these accidents. And there's documented accidents talking about this woman in white that appeared and then disappears.
Yeah. There's one here in Tampa Bay at the Skyway Bridge that she's seen, hitchhiking, and people pick her up, and she's in a white, not in a white gown, but a white top and white shorts, similar, but with the long black hair, and she's always looks wet. So people pick her up thinking, oh my gosh, what's wrong with this poor girl? And as soon as she gets in the car, she disappears. And then they go and tell the people at the toll booth, oh my God, there's this, where they go, oh, you saw our ghost, Our Lady in White.
So what do you think though?
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those phenomena that, again, I don't like to call things ghosts. I don't like to call things paranormal. I like to call things preternatural, stuff we don't understand yet. These are things that are replays, but since it's one of those things that's all over the world and it's very similar. So, and literally hundreds of sightings, thousands of sightings, documented for hundreds, if not thousands of years, because there's even some Roman writings back to Lupercalia that
God, how did you tie that back together again? Seriously,
there's some of the earliest
he's sitting
writings
behind the screen drawing a map of how he can get the fuck back to there again.
I'm putting the thumbtacks over here on the map. No, they go back to the some of the earliest writings from some of the Roman writers are talking of haunted house of Hades, these evil places, and the lady in white is a ghostly figure in white that they attribute to one of the Furies, driving you mad. This is the only people you can see it. I think this is something we don't understand scientifically. I think this is some sort of entity stuck between time or planes, and we're getting clips of it.
Do you think it's that, or do you think it's like somehow a shared trauma or something? Because the people that document seeing them, it's not, it's also interesting because it's not like the only people that see them are brokenhearted, or the only people that see them are, they do talk about, a lot of them talk about how, males will see them, but I don't know how many, females are driving down these dark roads at night at these times. So I just think, like, math, men are going to see them more than women are going to see them, or people who identify as male are going to see them more than people who identify as female, because it's that time of night. It's in that, up until a certain point in our history, the women didn't drive around at night, or didn't walk around at night, or didn't travel around at night. And you look at this and you go, how is something like this? Because I get the spirits, and I agree with you, there's so much we obviously don't know, but there's also a lot of water around this particular spirit. Generally, is there's something having to do with a river or a bridge, or stuff like that causes this spirit. And you just go, how do so many places have these same exact thing. Spirits?
Yeah,
right?
Even the like you were saying, the ones from Asia have very similar encounters. Like there's one in India, I believe it's called the Bhima Gupta, is another lady in white, and she's often seen when she passes your cow's milk turns sour. But that's always whenever your milk turns sour, it's got to be something supernatural. It can't just be your cow sick. That goes over here to Wampus cats and stuff like that. But she's in there. She's one of those that can turn into a snake, and that's one of those legends that she turns into a snake and slithers away when you get too close. But again, she is a victim of a lost love. She was supposedly, the reason she turns into that creature is that her marriage was never completed, never consecrated. So it's just unusual. I don't know what it's just the fact that there are so many. And now that you bring that up, because I hadn't even thought about that before we started doing this episode. I was thinking you said you were going to do the Lady in White. I'm like, oh well, there's this one, there's this one, there's this one. I didn't realize you were going to go into this whole culture of it.
No, I went down the rabbit hole because I was trying to chase it, and it went to Pennsylvania, and then Pennsylvania shot to Canada, right? Where there's a woman in white, lost her husband to British soldiers. I guess Canadians can make the British the bad guys and everything, like we do as well, very Star Wars and James Bond. And then but then it went over to Ireland, but then it went from Ireland and it was like Russia and all this stuff. And I went, you can kind of attribute things when they're in a European sort of situation, because our supposed history, I'm using quotation marks, there's a lot of European in the white history of being in this country, right? And even though we made all of that up, when you go into places like Russia, and then you go into Asian countries like Japan and Thailand and all these other places, and you go, wait a minute, they all have the same stories. They all have the same stories of this, and they look the same, and they all have these same stories, and they all have this generally foreboding, trying to cause some, I don't want to even say evil, but kind of trying to cause some sort of similar death to the death that they experienced on a road or whatever. And you go, how is that? How is that a universal thing that they all have these same things? So then you got to go, okay, so maybe we're not, they've attributed it to people. Like a lot of these cultures go, oh, that was Sally, and Sally, had this problem. But when it's in 10 different places, it's not Sally, right? Yeah. And so
when it's so similar. And again, some of them don't tie in historically, or there was no reported deaths here or anything like that. And again, it's a haunted stretch of road. And that's what's so cool about some of this phenomena. I put it up there with like the Hat Man and some of these other that are just reported over and over and over again, or the child ghosts that are reported. You hear them laughing, you hear them singing, and again, no reported deaths, but there they are. And I think this is one of those phenomena that, like you said, maybe a shared traumatic experience. It's just in our heads, and we get triggers. And you were talking about water. That one on the Skyway I mentioned earlier, that's one of the things people say is that when she gets out of when she disappears from your car, there's still water in the seat.
And it's the Skyway, right?
It is the Skyway, which is, probably if any bridge is going to be haunted, it's going to be that one. So
yeah, because that was the one that it was a cruise ship, right? Or a tanker?
Yeah, a tanker smashed into it and 23 people lost their lives in a Greyhound bus. And others fall into the water. It goes over the mouth of Tampa Bay, but then a boat wreck there just 6 months prior was the worst Coast Guard disaster in peacetime. And then that bridge had the most suicides per capita that we know of. The fact that they wouldn't report them is even worse. They recently finally put fences up around that bridge so that people can't jump off of it. That so the only bridge that has more deaths is the Golden Gate.
Wow.
But and the fact that hitchhiker moved from the old span, which is still a fishing pier, to the new span. So she just migrated, a few yards away, but she's still there and people still see her. And it's
you really gotta wonder what could cause that. I mean, I'd love to hear listener thoughts on this too, because we're going to cover a lot of things, and we're going to cover things that do cover various countries and stuff like that. But there are certain phenomenon that you just go, this is really weird. This is just really weird that it goes down this entire thing. And people, like the witness accounts of seeing this, whatever it is, entity, right, in all these places are, they and this is one of those entities that presents itself. Unlike some entities where it's like, did I actually see it or did I see a picture of it? And we kind of talked about that on one of the previous podcasts. This is one that's like, no, it is a woman in white. And a lot of times it gets in the car, or the vehicle, or
falls out of the sky onto your car, or jumps in front of you and you have to swerve to avoid her. And again, it's never a man in white, always a lady in white. It's always
barefoot. Barefoot is another usually, thing that's interesting. It's generally she's not wearing shoes. She has the white dress. Sometimes it's tattered and whatever. Sometimes it's wet, or sometimes it's just a dress, and then the long dark hair. So it's, I don't know, it's so creepy to me that I when I went down that rabbit hole. But I'm about to tie this back to Supernatural, which brings up a point that I know you're fond with. So besides my love of Sam and Dean and Crowley and many other delightful people on that show, there's some of the seasons of that show that are absolutely brilliant, and then there's what they did in the last lot of seasons. But whatever, no hate mail on Supernatural. I just rewatched it again. But one of the things that's interesting is the first episode they ever did was The Woman in White.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And, it was getting, and what's interesting, because I want to talk about Supernatural, because I know you know a lot about Supernatural in the first, because to me, the first 3 seasons were probably by far the best seasons. And I said that to you, and you said something to me, but you can't say it yet, because I want to go down my Woman in White, and then you can say it. So they cover The Woman in White, and they cover a woman who's walking along, gets picked up by hitchhikers and ends up killing them, right? And I'm not going to give away the episode completely. Oh wait, it's been out for like 20 something years, so
it's fine. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. What they thought it was a woman who had drowned her children. So it was because she found out her husband was cheating on her or something like that, and she's torturing them. And it turns out, no, it's actually fucking children that are killing everybody, and they're evil, and she's trying to keep people away from them, which is a great twist at the end of the episode, right? Our producer just pointed out, now I can get in trouble for spoiling a 20-year-old pilot. But I thought it was interesting, which is what made me go, oh, The Woman in White, heart, blah, blah, blah. So let's talk a little bit about Supernatural, because that episode, that pilot episode, was based on research of folklore of the white woman.
Yep.
But
well, they had a lot of folklorists and research people for that show. Some of them had done work on Buffy. Some of them had done work on some other shows. But again, they Hollywooded them. It's what they do. So that's why I always love when a show reaches out to say, hey, I've read this somewhere and I want to put this into an episode. And and one of our somebody in the community of us paranormal writers and stuff will reach out and say, hey, somebody's looking for info on this. Do you have any idea? I can only imagine back in those days when Supernatural was first starting, the internet was still early days as well. There wasn't all these forums and stuff like that. I guess it was still mostly chat rooms and stuff like that. But I know for Grimm, they reached out to quite a few of us when that show was on, and I got reached out to about a German ghost, and I don't know why they reached out to me because I'm the Florida guy. But it was kind of fun.
Didn't they on Supernatural? Didn't for like the first 3 years they actually employed a bunch of these people to do the show? And then change gears, right?
It was Nathan Robert Brown, I think, was the folklorist that was Supernatural. I know he also did Grimm later. He was one of the ones I worked with. So,
and I think one of the things that's interesting is that, when your audience out there, our fellow travelers, when you're watching some of these shows, like I just rewatched Buffy, we talked about that.
Yep.
Supernatural, Grimm, a lot of these shows like that, and I know I'm not even doing justice to all of them. Even X-Files, I think, took at least some of the ideas from it from stories that were in papers and things like that about, the sort of the conspiracy theory papers. And I don't mean that in a negative way, because I know there's a lot coming out about UFOs that the government said never happened.
All those spoilers now.
Yeah, now but I think that you can see, and it's fun. And look it up. If you're watching a show and you're going, hey, this seems really, look it up. Look what's behind that particular thing, because I know, for instance, the second episode of Supernatural was about the what is it called? It starts with a W. Oh my goodness, I just lost it. Wendigos.
Wendigo, yeah. They went heavy on that second episode, yeah. I think what's fun about those shows, and it's just like we talk about the ghost hunting shows nowadays and stuff like that, where it's, if nothing else, they're bringing light to these legends. They're keeping them alive. They're bringing renewed interest. Nowadays it's, the Conjuring movies are bringing back the Ed and Lorraine Warren's cases. Now, they're Hollywooding them, but it's still pretty good. The fact that we even talk about the Enfield haunting now is amazing to me. And that was from Conjuring 2, for those who don't know.
We're like this spoiler show. I guess that should have been the thing. Like, I
guess
spoil a shit ton of stuff on this show.
I mean, we could have went Valentine's Day Massacre, and we could have done that. No, but we did talk a little bit about Lupercalia, and we did talk a little bit.
When you say Valentine's Day Massacre, are you talking about the mobster Valentine's Day Massacre?
We could have gone that route, or we could have gone other Valentine's Day massacres. We could have gone Valentine horror movies. There's a lot of ways we could have done this. So those are maybe ideas for future years. When we get to those. So I don't want to.
Also could have talked about Caligula a little bit more. It's always an option.
We absolutely are not talking about Caligula.
Hey, he was a romantic guy. How many wives did he have? A lot. So
no, he's a Roman guy. It's different.
Oh yeah, but he had a lot of love to give. So
yeah, to all three of his sisters.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, Mark, you're not coming out on the shining side in this episode. I'm just gonna let you know.
I love my crazy Roman emperors. Come on.
Yeah, no, we need to apparently not take Mark to Rome anymore. Rome is a dangerous place to take Mark.
Not anymore. But
this is very true.
Oh my gosh. Well, and again, we could have just talked about St. Valentine's and how he was ripped to pieces,
Okay, Mark, what is your favorite Valentine's tradition then? Like,
okay,
what do you like to do on Valentine's Day?
Oh, my favorite Valentine's Day tradition is to watch whatever my spouse wants to watch that night. And thankfully, the lovely and talented Carrie Schultz loves to watch Forensic Files for Valentine's Day. So, yeah, knowing that she knows how to hide a body is just of infinite love for me. So,
I have to say, one of the funniest things is, I hope people watches the show Snapped. That was, I think it was on the USA Network for a long time, but the show Snapped. It's a true crime show, so I watch a lot of true crime stuff. I talk about that, and I will tell you, not my present other half, but previous ones, where it would be like, it is terrifying how much you watch this. I've always said to them, what should be terrifying to you is I know where to leave my cell phone. Because that's the biggest mistake people make, take their cell phone.
That's number one. Or like the guy who just found out, we could do some news here. Guy, this is romantic news. This guy's wife went missing, and his Google searches, like immediately after her disappearance, were, what is a hacksaw good for dismembering a body? Is how to use quicklime to hide a body? How will baking soda hide the smell? What's better to do? Burn your clothes or wash them if you committed a crime?
It's okay. He was just Googling chlorophyll.
Yes. He had it was on his son's iPad too, so that's why it wasn't him. It was his son doing all this.
Wow.
And so and one of the questions he asked was, can a man be convicted without a body? Well, we don't know if he's convicted, but he can be charged without a body. So he is up for murder, and just based on his son, on Google searches he did on his son's iPad for the 3 days after his wife went missing. So very romantic.
What's terrible is in most true crime situations, not all, I'm not lumping everybody in together, and I will never do that because it's true, but unfortunately in most true crime situations, when there are people in a relationship like that, it's usually the other person. I mean,
9 times out of 10.
And unfortunately,
it's a crazy number. It's like 90%. And so,
yeah, I mean, they go, well, of course they're going to look at me. I'm the husband. Well, yeah, of course they're going to look at you because 90% of the time it is you.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be stupid enough to go, there is a certain cleansing of the gene pool that occurs with people who do shit like Google things like that. Yes. I'm not saying or advocating to commit crimes.
No,
I fully agree. Now, I will tell you, I don't care if this is of record. If I ever get a terminal illness of some kind, I'm going to turn into Dexter, and I'm going to take out the people that should have been taken out to begin with.
You got a list?
I don't care.
You got a list? Yeah.
Every day in the news gives me a list. Like, there are plenty of people that unfortunately need to be resolved. But I wouldn't just go do that. But if you're in a relationship and you're not happy in the relationship, leave, go, do something else, get out. Like, the solution is not to kill the person. Like, that is never the solution.
And if you feel like you can't get out, there are plenty of sources that will help you. There are numbers to call, and I'm sure we can put those in the show notes, amongst other things. This is definitely, an area. Seek professional help if you can. Get help. We are not professional help. We are an authors and publishers. We
we are professionals at not that at all.
And we talk about spooky things on a radio podcast. So
I think, Mark, at some point, I think we need to go to Pennsylvania and see if we can get the woman in white to crash us into.
I've got a couple lonely friends that maybe, we're talking about end of life stuff. Maybe they might, get up there and give her somebody to talk to or something. So
I was going to say, maybe we could get a GoPro in one of their cars and we can see if we can have this interaction. But I think that would be, between the ghost at the Don Cesar, please check out if you're in St. Petersburg, Florida, or going to St. Pete, Florida. It is an amazing hotel, even to just go have dinner and not even stay in.
Or just go out to the beach behind it and just enjoy the fact that you have this castle behind you while you're sitting on the wonderful waters of the Gulf. So
yeah, no, exactly. And if you're out and you want to do some research, you can go down the rabbit hole like I did into the White Woman or the Woman in White and the stories that are there around there. Or if you're feeling frisky, I happen to know an author who wrote a book called The Wanton Woman in White, and it's a ghost erotica story. So you could go that direction too,
Or you can read about the lives and loves of Caligula.
Why are we going back to that?
I don't know. I love the fact that it came up.
I feel like I'm trying to drive this car in a certain direction, and you keep grabbing the steering wheel, Mark.
Or celebrate Lupercalia by wearing a thong made out of goat and run around and whip ladies so that you can.
No, we're not advocating any of that. Ixnay on the Greek holidays. No, stop that. That is no.
If you want to celebrate,
eat a bunch of chocolate, drink some wine, we're 1,000% on board with that. Just don't drive. Other than that, Mark, you're being the opposite of help this episode.
I'm sorry, Callie. What were you about to say?
Oh, it's good. I was just gonna say the way to celebrate Valentine's Day is to just spend it with people that you love, and just make sure your dog's not barking at the rain, because that's what mine's doing right now.
Oh yeah.
Hashtag true story. Spend it with people that you care about.
That's true.
Not doing some weird Greek tragedy. So with that, listeners out there, if there is something you'd like to tell us about, tell us a story about your life. There's something you'd like us to look into. I love going down rabbit holes, and so does Mark. Please go to eerietravels.com. Send us your listener tales. We'd love to hear about them, and we'll read them on the air. We'd love to, and just make sure you note for us whether or not you want to be anonymous or not, because man, I will read a name if you do not tell me otherwise.
Yep. The links are live. The website is live. You can also find our older podcasts there, older episodes you missed. And there's so much there. We've got the old episodes of the TV show. So, feel free to link up, and also to my books, and we'll put some of the Erika stuff up there soon. I can't wait.
Yeah, pretty soon we can put my murder books up there. That'll be great.
Yeah, that'll be good.
I think we're really lucky, because I think soon on the podcast, we're going to have some guests. So guys,
we've got our first few interviews lined up. I'm excited. We've also got, I've got a couple listener reports that I've got to go through and make sure it's okay for us to read them out. Thank you guys for sending them in. I'm excited, especially since the first couple episodes are just airing. So this should be good. So we're enjoying the train. We hope you all are. So please like and subscribe, and tell your friends, tell your family, tell people you don't like. Yeah, comment. Yeah. Rate us, whatever ratings on your podcaster of choice, give us a like, whatever it needs, because it costs you nothing and it helps us a ton. So we really do appreciate it. So,
and hopefully we'll be announcing some events this year. So Eerie Travels will be coming to a convention or event near you.
We're working on it. And again, let your local cons know you'd like us to be there, and have these few crazy folks get over there, and we'll bring all the show. So I'll bring Carrie and her art, and Callie will bring Pockets, the amazing Wonder Dog, and Erika, you'll bring the whole Four Horsemen crew. I know you. So
I'll do that, and I will leave my cell phone at home just in case there's some things I need to take care of.
Yeah. And we'll watch for Ladies in White while we are looking for hitchhiking ghosts while we're driving there. So.
I appreciate that thoroughly. Thank you guys so much for being with us tonight, or today. Who knows?
Who knows when you're listening to this? This could be Valentine's 2029, and we're still, and we'd appreciate you re-listening to this. But thank you all so much, and happy Valentine's Day. Oh my God.
Happy Valentine's Day. However you celebrate, no whips.
Yeah, no whips. All right, fine. There goes my Tuesday plan. All right.